Ready when you are.
Very good afternoon to everybody, and that's the wish again that I've already specified, and we are now continuing with the second session of our training. So how was your break?
Good.
Is everything okay? Alright, and do you feel more relaxed after that? Okay, just recap through what we have gone through. Retrieving data from external data sources, which we have already gone through in the morning. Not only that, in the morning, in fact, if you were to observe over on this side, which I've already just filled up, we went through data filtering as part of the items in one of the database concept. Today we're going to take a look further at the data validation as well as the VLOOKUP. Right, before we proceed on, let's have some review questions. So perhaps maybe I'll start with Mary. Right. So let's take a look at this question. Name several types of database that you can retrieve from external sources. What do you can think of? Microsoft Access. This one. Thank you, Mary. That's great. And let's proceed on to GIE. So, what several types of database that you can think of?
SQL
Server. Fantastic. Thank you, GIE. Okay, so Pramila, any other database types that you can think of that we went through in the morning session?
SQL Server OLAP.
Okay, that's right. Thank you very much. Very well. Very good. Okay, so these are the answers. These are all the database types that we have gone through in the morning session. Right, let's review some other question. Microsoft provides drivers that you can use to retrieve data from following data sources. Name at least 3 data sources. Okay, maybe Richard, you could provide some insight.
Excel.
Excel, fantastic.
And also database.
Okay. All right, let's have Michelle then. So Michelle, would you like to?
Oracle.
Oracle, fantastic. Oracle, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so in fact there are more to this. If you were to observe, these are some of the data, at least data sources that you have already learned through in the morning session. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at one of the main objectives of why we are here. Apparently, most of you are database specialists, okay, and you are tasked to extract information from employee database. You are from the department, part of the IT department, and HR usually would like to get more information based on the hundreds or thousands of database from external sources. Now, there will be 3 parts to this objective. The first is that we'll be running through data validation, and the next one will be VLOOKUP functions, and following that we'll be running through with the hands-on. Let's take a look at data validation. People will be asking what data validation is all about. In definition, data validation feature allows user to make list entry from the database. Now, if you have Excel already in place, all right, you are given this information. So if you take a look at the row 4 onwards, those are the heading, and row 5 will be all the data that you've extracted from external sources, which we'll run through in the morning session. Now the top portion, which is row 1 to A, you are actually tasked to put in the last name, and you can make use of data validation without you need to type. Because sometimes when you type the name of the person, you might tend to get errors. So what you need to do is that you can just click on this option here at A2. And before we do that, let's navigate. The top portion is where we have all the panels. And because we're making use of data validation, it's definitely under the data option, which you'll be concentrating on. So you have to concentrate on this area. So once you have the data type, you have all the groups available. But the groups that we are more concerned on this side is more on the data tools group, where one of the item will be data validation, which you will click on that, and you will click on the next option where you will see the data validation dialog box. Now, because we are making use of the list type, you have to change this portion here to list. Right, that's because you need to extract the list of all the people from the database. Now then again, you need to specify which are the sources. Now, because if I'm going to extract last name, so I have to definitely highlight all the last name column. And following that, you click OK. Now, once you have clicked OK, what you'll see that there will be a list of people that you can get based on the database that you have specified. Okay, so that's database validation, the list type. Now the next part that we'll be taking a look will be on the VLOOKUP. In definition, VLOOKUP, vertical lookup, is designed to look up values in a vertical table of information. So what it does is that it searches for a match for the search criteria, and then it displays information from one of the columns in the table where the search criteria were met. Right, by just a definition, Pramila, what do you think could this be? Do you have any idea what this is all about?
Basically, searches for that particular name and then it looks it up.
Right, and then it will display out the information.
Yes.
Thank you, Pramila. That's a very good answer. Now let's take a look at the example over here. Okay, earlier on, you have already gone through data validation where Gordon name is, right? When you click at cell A1, you decided to select Gordon. But then apparently Hazel is not available. That's because the VLOOKUP function was not implemented yet. Okay, so what you need to do for this case, I'll run through with demonstration, and after that we'll run through with the hands-on session after this demo. Now when you click at the FX over this side, if you observe carefully this portion here, the insert function dialog box will appear. Now because you're making use of the VLOOKUP function, if the function is not available, you can simply type VLOOKUP, click and go, and the VLOOKUP function will appear at that portion, and you click OK. And once you click OK, this is the function argument that will appear. Now for the VLOOKUP, I'll explain in greater detail what you need to look up for. Because you need to find the answer at row B, at column B, row 2, you need to specify what's the lookup value. So the lookup value will be A2 in this sense. And you need to refer it, make a reference to the table. And in this sense, you can highlight from A5 to J118. That means you start from the last name and all the way to J118. Following that, you just click OK. Alright, and instantly you will get the name Hazel over there. So I'm going to give you a little bit brief and more explanation on VLOOKUP. Okay, so is everybody able to see? Let me just walk to the back and see if everyone is okay with that. Yeah, Michelle, can you see the shots? Okay. Now let's take a look at this formula. Okay, I have a reference which consists of the country and the price. So probably maybe this is only part of, let's say, a holiday package. That means if you want to go to Brazil, maybe it costs about 400. Okay, or China, it costs about 800 from the location where you're from. Now apparently there are occasions when customer calls in and customer say, I would like to go to Brazil. Now you being the database, you might need they say for example the front desk need information from you. So you can simply type the word Brazil here. Now if you have implemented the VLOOKUP function over at B3, you should be able to get 400. Right? That's because you're making a reference. So in general terms, to just erase this portion here and give you the overview of the formula. Right? So in this sense, what you need to do is that you have to specify what's the input. And in this sense, the input will be, anybody want to make a guess? So it's A3. It's A3. Right, so that will be the input. So the first portion will be input. Now the next part of the syntax is that you have to make a reference. So Chai, would you like to make a guess? What do you think the reference would be?
It will be from D3 to E6.
All right, D3 to E6, excellent. So that will be D3 to E6. Now, if you find that this portion here, it's actually standard, and you wouldn't want to make some errors here, because sometimes when you don't lock it, when you copy to other cells, it will give you some errors. So you need to lock this by pressing the F4 function key. Make it absolute. So by pressing the F4 function key, you can lock the reference. So this second part will be the reference. Okay. Now following that, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, we need to find the value for this. And we usually reference it in terms of columns. So that's where the column needs to be specified. So maybe Pramela, what do you think the column will be like to proceed on with that formula?
E3?
It should be column
Okay, 2.
column 2, right? Because we want to find out the column 2 and to highlight the answers over here. So we'll just put 2 over there. Now the next portion is more on the logic. That means if you want to extract the direct match of what's the reference all about over here, you have to specify it as a 0, which is a false. Okay, and this portion here will be the column. So there you go. So you have the whole formula, which consists of the input, the reference, the column, and the false. So Richard, if I entered the information or the VLOOKUP function correctly, what do you think the answer would be for this, for Brazil?
400.
400, excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so that will be 400. Now we take a look at another scenario. You'll find that you can also make use of VLOOKUP to find searches. The earlier part was a direct match. So that's why you specify false. Now if it's a direct match, let's take a look at this scenario. These are the grades of students in examination. These are all the grades. So from 0 to 50, so for 50 will be grade D, 75 will be grade B. And let's say for example one of the database specialists enters 55. Now 55 is not within the list. But what do you think that 55 grade will be? Anyone want to make a guess?
Maybe D.
D? Yes, D is correct. Excellent. Right, that's because from 55 to 60, perhaps up to 59, it will all be grade B. Alright, so this is how you look out for searches. So the formula will be slightly different. I'll just highlight it as a different color. Okay, so in this sense, it's VLOOKUP, and because we want to find based on the input, so we have to specify A2, and we need to make a reference to it. And the reference to it, which has already been marked in red, from D2 to E6. Okay, so it'll be from D2 to E6. And again, if you want to lock it, you can make use of the F4 function key. So by just pressing the F4 function key, formula changes to $D$2, $E$6. So meaning to say when you copy, it will always be maintained as that reference. It will not give you errors. Now, we also want to make use of the grades here. So that will be the column. And the column this time here, anyone will make a guess? What will be the column? Column B2. Thank you very much. So B2. Now, because this is a search of list, so there's some range down there. So you cannot make use of the false. You have to specify as true. Right? So you have to specify 1. So if everything is done correctly, then you should be getting. So everybody okay with the concept? Yeah. Thank you very much. So let's proceed on to the next part, where we'll proceed on with our lab. Okay, what I need you to do now is that launch your Microsoft Excel. And you'll see that I've already given you the handouts early in the morning. And employee1.xls is a file that you can just open up. We'll be going to take a look at the data validation, how we're going to set it up. Okay, so we'll do this together. Let's refer to the lab session. The steps are found on page 12. Please refer to page 12. So let me just walk around and see that you've already activated your Excel and open up your file. So that's done. Well, thank you, Richard. Camilla, that's great. Charlie, that's great. And Mary, okay, that's great. Let's look at Michelle. Done. Okay, let's take a look at data validation list. Now for this part here, we'll do it together. Place your cell at this location. Straight away, proceed on to data. Alright. So as mentioned, go to the data validation where the data validation group is shown down there. Just click on it. And this is the part where you need to specify. Okay, so next. Alright, I heard Pramela saying that. Thank you, Pramela. Now, what are the source that you need to highlight? The source will be from A5 and all the way down to the bottom. Now, one of the best way that you could do this is to press Ctrl-Shift down arrow key. Alright, so this is where you get the list. Now, the reason why we press Ctrl-Shift down is that, let's say, for example, you have thousands of employees, you go all the way to the last record. Right, click OK following that. Go back to that location and just click OK. So if you bring your cursor all the way up to the top, you'll get this list. Okay. Right, so let's select Preston or any other name that you like. Okay, the next part that we'll be proceeding on will be making use of the VLOOKUP function. Let's place your cell at first name. Okay, what's the first thing that you need to do? If you can recap again. Anyone want to make a guess? You have to point your cursor at the insert function, right? So just click on that insert function. Great. No. Okay, don't be alarmed. I couldn't find where VLOOKUP is. So you can simply type VLOOKUP over at that space over there and click go. Alright, so you have VLOOKUP being highlighted and just click OK. Right. Now this is where we have to key in all the values. Now the values I've already explained to you in greater detail just now. That is found on page 13. So the lookup value, you have to specify A2 as the input value. Alright. And you can simply highlight the next table array, which should start from row A5, column A, row 5. And this time around, you can just simply make use of the Ctrl-Shift right, Ctrl-Shift down. Okay, so this will highlight A5 to J118. Alright, so you just simply need to click at the table array. So just click on that side, that's right. Okay, and specify from A5 to J118. Are you doing okay, Michelle? Yeah? Okay, that's fantastic. Mary, is everything okay?
Yep.
That's great. You got the answer. Okay, so column that we need to specify will be based on column 2, right? And the lookup function, we have to specify false because it's a direct match. You click on 0. So if you click at OK, there you go. So you'll get laser. Everybody got the answers to that? Okay. So we can generally check the answers for position and salary, okay, as you make use of the VLOOKUP function. All right. So let me just change that. So in summary, what we've gone through is that we are able to use a Microsoft query to import data from external sources, which we have done in the earlier session. we are able to use data validation lists, all right, and make use of the list type. And we have also learned how to make use of the VLOOKUP function. Okay, so we have achieved our objective. Okay, so well done everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.